The gathering music today is a series of not as well-known Christmas carols done in the style of great composers over the whole history of music. So on the slide here, you'll see the name of the carol and then the name of the composer whose style is integrated. For those of you who know Eric Satie's Gymnopédie, that's this one. This is supposed to be in the style of Haydn. The next one is Furilis meets Jesu Bambino. The last is in the style of Mozart.
Thank you, Melanie. Good morning and welcome to this new year, a long awaited threshold to cross. I am so glad you're here to reflect, sing, and open to the here and now together. This would be a good time to gather your candles so you can join me in lighting our chalice after we sing hymn 317, We Are Not Our Own, with Melanie.
We are not our own. We are not our own. Earth forms us. Human leaves on
Thank you, Melanie. I'd like to light this morning's chalice in gratitude for each of you, for all that we continue to share of ourselves, our souls, and the ways that we play that keep the fire inside burning bright. You remind me that I am not an island, even in our temporary isolation. I'm so grateful for your presence. Please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Paul Beckel. A few weeks ago, we recognized our Buff Coming of Age class, and I charged them to continue to mature as they faced new challenges and opportunities, as they succeed and as they make mistakes. Maturity, of course, isn't a threshold that we cross once and then can take for granted. It's more of a spiral journey, forward in time, but not so straightforward as a learning curve. Coming of age is a real thing, a physical, psychological, and social process, but we can't point to a particular moment when it takes place. So it is with the transition that we're all going through these days, often referred to as good riddance to 2020. And though in some ways the new year is an arbitrary marker of a point of transition, we are in fact in the season of lengthening days. We are almost post-election, and 4 million vaccinations have been administered in the US, 12 million across the globe. COVID is on the rampage, and it is also true that there is cause for hope. Not everyone, however, survives coming of age, elections, or pandemic. And even those of us who have survived will experience again the turning of the earth into another equinox, another solstice, another equinox, another solstice, a spiral journey through joys and heartbreak, our own generosity and carelessness, learning and forgetting. Thank you for being with me today. This most unusual first Sunday of a new year, when resolutions may seem more important than ever, or may seem moot in the context of the swirl of uncertainty. Thank you for joining with me and joining with one another on this spiral journey. I have a story to share with you now called The Dance. A father once had a daughter. She was happy, a happy little girl who liked to do things like dress up and play with kittens, and sometimes both at the same time. But most of all, she liked to dance. Nearly every day, she would jump and spin in the thick wild grass near the edge of the yard where the tall meadow flowers grew. Though she didn't see him, her father watched, and he smiled. When the girl was old enough to go to school, she danced in the Thanksgiving play, dressed as an ear of corn. She could not see out of her costume very well and tripped over a boy dressed as a carrot. Though she could not see her father, he was watching, and he smiled. When the girl was a little older, she took dancing lessons. She wore a pink tutu and soft leather ballet slippers. At her first dance recital, she tried very hard to remember her steps. She did not see her father standing close to the stage, but he was smiling. A few years later, the girl became a graceful ballerina. She wore pink satin toe shoes with long, shiny ribbons. One year she danced a solo in the Nutcracker. Everyone clapped when she finished. The crowd was large and the stage lights were bright, so the girl could not see her father in the audience. But he clapped louder than anyone else, and he smiled wider than anyone else. The girl grew into a young woman. One spring night, she put on a beautiful gown and high-heeled pumps and went to her first prom with a young man. When the young man brought her home, they did not see her father peeking out the window as they slow danced on the front porch. This says he wasn't smiling, but I don't know about that. I would be. Where are we? The young woman fell in love with the young man, and they soon decided to marry. At the end of the wedding day, she waltzed with her father. Then the father gave his girl's hand to the young man. Another kind of anachronism, but I don't know. Just bear with me because I think I might get a little choked up as we proceed. As the young woman gazed into her new husband's eyes, she did not see her father watching from the side of the room. Though the father's eyes were moist, he smiled. The young woman and her new husband moved far away from the home with the thick grass and the tall meadow flowers. Whenever he missed his daughter, the father would take out an old shoebox filled with photographs of her dancing, and he looked at the pictures, and he remembered each dance, and he smiled. Many years passed. One day, the father called his daughter on the telephone. "I am old now. I am cold and very tired. Please come to me. I would like to see you dance. Just one more time." The daughter came. She found her father in his bed, and she danced for him. But the father did not smile. "I cannot see you," he said. "My eyes are not much good. Dance close to the bed so that I can hear your feet." The woman walked close to the bed, and then she jumped and spun as she had as a little girl. Now the father smiled. Then the woman sat on her father's bed. She lay her face against his, took his hand, and they swayed back and forth. In this way, they danced once more. I have danced many times, the woman whispered into her father's ear, in many places and for many people. But I have always danced for you. How can I ever dance again? She buried her head in her father's chest. But her father shook his head. You must never stop dancing, he said, for though you will not see me, whenever you dance, I will be watching. Then the father went to sleep, and the daughter sadly left his side. She stopped at the doorway and looked back once more at the father she left. And then she danced. And though she could not see him, her father was watching, and he smiled. Now I invite you to join with me in a calming period of meditation. Let go of any tension in your heart. Breathe deeply. Know that we're together. Know that we're feeling some angst together, some maybe regrets, losses, yearning. Let's keep breathing deeply, knowing that we're rooted to the earth and connected to the glory of all being. And let us live today with reverence for ourselves, each other, and all things. Let us breathe, sensing our connection with one another and all that is. Spirit of love here in us and joining us to all that is. We speak of you with reverence. In your name, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our task and our opportunity here and now. While the stars above obey the laws of the heavens. May there be food for all so that none may go hungry. When we have been unfair, unkind, or thoughtless, may we have the courage to apologize and the wisdom to forgive when others hurt us. Give us strength to do as we are guided by conscience, and to turn away from whatever harms us or hurts others. Spirit of love, the wonder, the beauty, and the goodness all around us. For these we give praise and thanks.
Everything I counted on and everything I planned started moving like the water, shifting in the sand. I thought I was an island. Now finally I know I'm just a passenger riding the flow. It's alright, move my world. Move me, move my world. Remember to remember the wonder in it all, the unforeseen among us, the unexpected call. Amaze me with your answer, open up my eyes, tune me like the rhythm of the moon across the sky. It's alright, move my world. Move me, move my world. Draw me to the currents, rise and take me in, pull me on beyond myself again and again. Ooh, yeah, it's alright, move my world. Move me, move my world. Yeah, it's alright to move my world. Yeah, move me, move my world.
Good morning. My name is Mary Alden. I'm a member of the Black Lives Matter Ministry Action Team, here to bring you an Eracism moment. Ibram X. Kendi, in his recent book, Stamped from the Beginning, documents the development of racist ideas and thoughts in America. In our late colonial times, which was the historical period known as the Enlightenment, he notes, for Enlightenment intellectuals, the metaphor of light typically had a double meaning. As well as the rediscovery of learning coming out of a period of dogmatic religious belief, light became a symbol for Europeanness, whiteness, and reason. Darkness symbolized blackness and ignorance. The book records writers in this period associating words such as beauty, industry, lawfulness, and brilliance with whiteness, and words such as ugliness, coarseness, indolence, lawlessness, and dullness with blackness. We could go on and add more examples. Curious to see how these concepts work their way into our language today, I looked up the words black and white in Merriam-Webster's thesaurus. A third meaning for the word black, following the meanings signifying color and mood is, quote, not conforming to a high moral standard, morally unacceptable, end quote. Synonyms were listed as bad, dark, evil, immoral, unsavory, vile, wicked, etc. In the same source, the third meaning of the word white is, quote, free from sin, with synonyms and related words listed as chaste, moral, virtuous, decent, ethical, honest, honorable, etc. We may be mostly unconscious of these carefully cultivated word associations and in what ways they contribute to unseen bias in all of us. Kendi, the author, relates how he was unaware of his own bias. He writes in his prologue to the book, quote, even though I am an Africana studies historian and have been tutored all my life in egalitarian spaces, I held racist notions of Black inferiority before researching and writing this book, end of quote. As we seek to grow and mature on our journey to becoming beloved community, let us listen to and learn from the knowledge and experience of the Black voices of wisdom available to us, and take the time to reflect on their meanings in our own spiral development.
Thank you, Mary. When I was little, I did not like pickles or mayonnaise, broccoli, sauerkraut, or tuna. It would not have even occurred to me to eat kale. The fact that I do now enjoy all of these things, I do not consider a sign of maturity. The expansion of my dietary preferences makes my life more enjoyable, but it does not make me more virtuous. In our recent coming of age ceremony, I did not tell our buff teens to eat their broccoli. Rather, I noted that they have reached a point in their lives where everywhere they go, and in their own homes and families, they will be held to a standard of expectation regarding maturity. In part, this will include taking responsibility for themselves and taking responsibility for the impact that their actions have on others. Noting that responsibility, of course, comes with freedom. So I also charge them to enjoy their freedom, to employ their freedom by being themselves and by taking the risk to live full and generous lives. Since I am a powerful orator, I am sure that the teens remember me saying that to be mature means to remain humble. As I urge them to continue to learn without, however, stuffing their heads with learning, I encourage them to learn without pretending that we can truly learn anything without putting what we've learned into practice. This was, of course, a very abbreviated list of the demands of adulthood. We could point to just about any virtue as a standard for maturity. To examine them all, of course, would take a lifetime. So we have a couple of alternatives. We could, with budding adolescent chutzpah, spend our time arguing about what is and is not a virtue. Or we could pick one for now and get on with it. We could focus perhaps on something that we're already good at. Virtuous action does not have to be painful. Or we could focus on some area of life where we have some motivation to improve. There is a confluence in this moment where our capacities and what this world needs come together. There is a confluence in this moment where our capacities and what the world needs come together. For each of us, this will be different. For each of us to respond to this call, be it ever so humble, this is what maturity looks like. We should note, of course, that whatever so-called virtue or characteristic of maturity that we're talking about, or better yet, putting into practice, our quest can easily lead us away from virtue or maturity. A universalist conviction that the love of God holds equally for all people, leading into a sense of our oneness with humanity, leading to a deep compassion and zeal for social justice. As much as we affirm and promote this progression, we need to stay conscious that fighting relentlessly against equally relentless opposition could lead us into temptation to feel self-righteous and morally superior rather than humble in our efforts. It being the season for resolutions, a study has recently come out about the paradox of self-enhancement. The paradox of self-enhancement. It turns out that practices that are supposed to minimize the ego very commonly enlarge it. And those who put extra effort into enhancing spirituality are often the smuggest, most self-aggrandizing and unbearable of all. This is not an overall condemnation of mindfulness exercises, yoga, or hanging upside down on the jungle gym as a path to inner peace. It is simply a calling to awareness that not only can the best intentions be the road to hell, but even the best practices, practiced as if they are the singular ultimate route to enlightenment, can lead us astray. Mahatma Gandhi spoke of 7 sins: wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, science without humanity, knowledge without character, politics without principle, commerce without morality, worship without sacrifice. Science, knowledge, politics, commerce, worship, all can be holy pursuits, or they can beget horrors. So maturity is not just about cultivating virtue. It's also about being self-aware enough to see its potential for abuse. Cultivating virtue, especially in this time of isolation, can too easily lead us into becoming a cult of one. This does not mean that if we find ourselves alone, we're ruined. It means simply that remembering our mortality, we cannot take anything for granted. When I think of a spiral journey, I think of the unbalancing and rebalancing of my best efforts. Stupid mistakes, unintentional consequences, and unearned good fortune through time. Many Unitarian Universalists go through stages of spiritual development. that involve rejecting traditional religious rites of passage, epic stories, and languages of reverence. Unitarian Universalism as a whole went through and is still going through similar stages of spiritual development. So even those who were born into our living tradition, this still evolving UU movement, can get caught up in or stuck in the adolescent stage of reactionary rejection of anything with even a whiff of religiosity. You might not have noticed that the meditation that I shared earlier today was line by line an interpretation of what Christians know as the Lord's Prayer or the Our Father. Our Father who art in heaven, Spirit of love, here in us and joining us to all that is. Hallowed be thy name. We speak of you with reverence. Thy kingdom come. In your name, we will work for peace and honor all creation. Thy will be done. This is our task, our opportunity, here and now. On earth as it is in heaven, while the stars above obey the laws of the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread. May there be food for all, so that none may go hungry. And forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. When we have been unfair, unkind, or thoughtless, may we have the courage to apologize and the wisdom to forgive when others hurt us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Give us strength to do as we are guided by conscience, and to turn away from whatever harms us or hurts others. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. For the wonder, the beauty, and the goodness all around us, we give praise and thanks. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that maturity means becoming an old fart who reveres tradition for its own sake. There are many traditions that are anything but virtuous. You don't have to look, for example, at a gigantic statue honoring Robert E. Lee and say, God loved Robert E. Lee just as much as anyone, so why not put up a gigantic statue to honor him? Rather, it's important to discern between situations when we need to point out that something is harmful versus when we simply have a different perspective, which we don't always need to share, especially if it's going to take away from the deeper power of the moment, or take away from another person's delight in blessing us in their own way. The sweet lament, known now as the Prayer of St. Francis, goes like this. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Master, let me not seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. I resonate with these aspirations in a deeper way when I remove a couple of words that get in the way of my critical theological analysis. I prefer to say the prayer by removing the words Lord and Master, and the, for me, too specific pointer to out there as where these virtues come from. That way I'm able to appreciate the prayer's deeper meaning. Adapting such a prayer, I believe, can help me to more fully affirm its meaning. But this can also pull my consciousness away from the meaning. If each time I call these words to mind, I feel the need to point out to myself or to others that it's a beautiful attitude to, it's a beautiful attitude to say the prayer, but see, I did it again. And yet, those in Francis of Assisi's own movement have critically assessed this prayer. They say it could not have been written by Francis, who would never have prayed, me, me, me. One of his followers offers an alternative. Blessed are they who love and do not therefore desire to be loved. Blessed are they who serve and do not therefore desire to be served. I most easily, and it goes on that way, I most easily resonate with spiritual practices without words. So my brain does not get distracted by analyzing the words. So when it comes to singing, which moves me so much, I can sing powerful choral songs with words, but I get more inspiration of it singing with a full voice in a language I don't understand. Just taking in the majesty and weeping with the lament that is inherent within the music itself. But we don't always have that option. And maturity often calls us to let go of our resistance. So sing with me now, Amazing Grace.
Words to this beloved song are by John Newton, and they were written over 200 years ago. And I just wanted to note that in our UU hymnal, the one word that they suggest you might want to change, instead of how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, you could say that saved a soul like me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed.
Unitarian Universalist Reverend Forrest Church defined religion as the human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. Coming of age, and then being of age, maturing, slipping, playing, growing, erring, regretting, forgiving, and learning. All are part of a sacred, precious process of being alive and having to die. And so what is it to live in that in-between? Losing touch with neither the beginning nor the end. Another lovely and paradoxical aspect of maturity is to retain the spirit of a child, the spirit of play, imagination, and trust. Growing older so often means accumulating hurt and can easily lead to our defensiveness and resistance. Growing older can also mean accumulating more stuff, more comforts, and the fear of losing our privileges that in some ways do make our lives more secure. It's a paradox. Michael Mendisa, in an essay called The Intelligence of Play, writes, "To understand the intelligence of play is to appreciate the difference between learning and conditioning. Real learning at any age, from the known to the unknown, and occurs in a natural state of wonder, curiosity, inquiry, exploration, testing, observing, imagining." He continues, life can condition us in the opposite direction. Conditioning, which includes the vast majority of schooling, training, and coaching, is most often externally motivated. It usually takes the form of rewards and punishments. A certain amount of conditioning and habituation are necessary. Otherwise, we could never master anything, always having to discover anew how to tie our shoes. But every time we master anything, we must return to the state of play, to transcend the limitations of habitual and reflexive state of body and mind implied by that mastery. Here's a great reading about learning. Autobiography in 5 short chapters by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find my way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it's there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It's my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. I was sincere when I said that I appreciate this reading. It's also worth noting, however, that the process described here is about conditioning. It's playful in its tone, but it's really about negative reinforcement. It's also very linear, which life, of course, is not. I've also been impressed by the aphorism, life will provide us with the same lesson over and over until we get it. It's a little simplistic, as bumper sticker theology and Old Richard's Almanac can be, but still insightful when taken in the spirit of another overly simplistic aphorism, which I find very meaningful. That is, whatever is true, so is its opposite. I got this from my hospital chaplaincy supervisor, who cautioned us against the ego of trying to fix rather than accompany people who were going through battles we could not possibly understand. My wish for 2021 is that when history repeats itself, that we as a society will learn something. And my more humble self simply finds solace in the fact that even when we have not learned, still we can reflect that we have made it through such difficult passages, and we have again had the opportunity to try again. As it says in the second verse, the deeper and less sappy verse of Auld Lang Syne. We have run about the hills and picked the daisies fine, but we've wandered many a weary foot since Auld Lang Syne. That's the old times. We have paddled in the stream from morning sun till dine, but seas between us broad have roared since Auld Lang Syne. So then let's raise our cups. Cups of comfort when it comes, and cups of kindness as well. May we laugh again with childlike delight. Remember the old days. Remember our mortality, and give thanks for the time in between. Amen.
All the ways that you find to be generous are appreciated. Your time, your talents, your resources. And there are many ways to bring your support to the community. They will be shown on the screen. You can give from your phone, the Give Plus app, a very trusted route that you can use on iPhone or Android. You can donate online at buff.org, or you can write a check payable to Buff and mailed to the address at the bottom of the screen. And everything you bring is appreciated and enriches our community. Thank you.
And I do wish all of you Happy New Year. We're now going to sing our closing hymn, which is Wake Now My Senses, 298. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wild sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend. Praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Thank you, Melanie. That was beautiful. And I have found my new favorite version of Auld Lang Syne. Taizé services originated in the monastic community in Taizé, France in the 1940s. At Buff, we have created our own UU style Taizé service that draws from one of our sources, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder. Our next Taizé service will be Monday, January 4th, tomorrow at 7 p.m. To join, the Zoom link is on our website at buff.org. It's also in the weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to if you'd like on buff.org. And Rod will be posting the link in the chat box as well. Hope to see you there. Also, you're invited to stay on Zoom after the service. We'll break into small randomized groups for about 10 minutes, and then the groups will be juggled for another 10-minute period. You can stay as long as you like to meet newcomers, people that you might not otherwise have met, check in on one another's well-being, and reflect on the theme of today's service. And now, as we extinguish the chalice, let's hold one another's presence within as a steadying glow as we enter the new spiral of this year. Now we'll circle around for freedom.